He sat down and they said, "You go first."
All right.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be here today, even though I got a little surprised when I got here. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here and speak at this workshop entitled "An Injury to One is an Injury to All, a Conference in Defense of Civil Liberties." I thought about what I was going to say. As a person who likes to read the classics, I thought about Macbeth, Act 4, Scene 2 by Shakespeare. But the times are cruel when we are accused of being traitors without knowing our treason. When we believe every frightening rumor based only on what we fear might be true. Now, I thought that was relevant to what we're talking about today, because as it relates to civil liberties, people are accused all the time of things, and they don't know really what the crime is, but their civil liberties are taken from them. Civil liberties are targeted in America today. People living in this country are losing their civil liberties. A survey of the American landscape is truly frightening. If you look illegal or like a terrorist to law enforcement officials, your civil liberties might be taken away. The loss of civil liberties even extends to employees working for state agencies in Connecticut, and I'm going to get to that in just a moment. First, we have to understand civil liberties is defined as fundamental individual rights such as freedom of speech and religion protected by a legal guarantee. A loss of basic civil rights, or civil liberties, I should say, surrounds us today. If you speak out and offend people in power, you are targeted, and you might lose your civil liberties. If people legally protest outside of a Walmart, like I did and other people November the 23rd in West Hartford, and they almost locked us up just for protesting, you might lose civil liberties. If we look at civil liberties being targeted, we can see that the state of Arizona is harassing people they think are illegal aliens. While in New Haven, Connecticut, good old New Haven, the land of the Yankees, police are caught on video in a store harassing Spanish-speaking people. And when we talk about civil liberties being targeted, we have to understand that people in other places also have the same ideas as we do today. An activist in New Hampshire put it this way: but many times in America, if you look illegal, we think it is reasonable to assume you are illegal. If you look like a terrorist, then it is reasonable to assume that you might be a terrorist. If you look like a bully, then it is reasonable to assume you are apt to be using excessive force, i.e., the angry black man, unnecessarily in order to compel compliance or whatever the stereotype might be. There's a parallel here, my friend in New Hampshire said. In each case, the individual is suffering because of stereotypes about the group. We have to ask, whatever happened to individual liberties in this great system of ours? Individual liberties and the presumption of innocence are as important for blacks and Latinos as for everyone else. Perhaps even more so because of the danger that the powers that be may unknowingly harbor perceptions distorted by cultural misunderstandings and class prejudices. Well, my friend in New Hampshire goes on to say a lot more, but I'm just going to say a couple of more things here. Stereotypes are lousy shortcuts to logic and evidence. And we have to say that white Americans would be outraged by anyone jumping to the conclusion that they are guilty of something just by looking at them. So we have to understand that all across America, civil liberties are being targeted. And, once you start targeting people, you're starting down what we shall call a slippery slope. And I think it's important to talk about why it is necessary to halt the erosion of civil liberties. Well, I like to read a lot. So, one of the things that can help you understand why it's important to stop the erosion of civil liberties is a book by a man named Christopher M. Finan, F-I-N-A-N, From the Palmer Raids to the Patriot Act, A History of the Fight for Free Speech in America. Finan describes how horrific it is not to possess civil liberties and the destructive effect such a loss has on society in general. And then if we go and look at Stanley Cohen's book, States of Denial, he also talks about what happens when people lose their civil liberties, but more importantly, in States of Denial, Stanley Cohen talks about what happens when people like us stand on the side like spectators and we watch the erosion of those civil liberties. It's like an old Fellini movie where people are moving and other people just stand there frozen in space and time, wondering what to do. While in the meantime, back at the ranch, they're taking my butt, or my friend Frank, or Adam, or some of you off, and your civil liberties are being eroded. And since I like to read, and I have a lot of time to read, I like to read Mr. Chomsky. Now, some people don't like Noam Chomsky, but, I've read a couple of his books, and you know what? I think he talks about civil liberties in his books, Hegemony or Survival, and Imperial Ambitions. He talks about the United States of America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, a term that is misleading, for it should be called the land of the thief and the home of the slave. In this great country of ours, Noam Chomsky talks about America as being a thug, and how America uses military power, economic sanctions, and plain old force to white people. They still use that term, white people, to take away people's civil liberties internationally. And so we can see that if you start on that slope, it becomes a slippery slope, and it continues to go down, and even this country is involved in taking people's civil liberties. Now, if we look at this from another perspective, the Department of Children and Families, an agency that is designed to take care of children and receives $1 billion yearly in aid from the state, is taking away the liberties of employees of color. Employees of color at the Department of Children and Families suffer loss of personal rights. Blacks and Latinos are disciplined more frequently and severely than whites and others. This is shown clearly on the website that I started. Listen for the name, DCFplantation.org. You can't miss it. It has a picture of Nat Turner on the front, preaching to people about revolution. So if you go to that website and look, you'll see data gained through the Freedom of Information Act from DCF. I like that best. I'm beating you up with your own stuff, right? And it shows conclusively, or as my English teacher would say, there's incontrovertible proof that DCF is discriminating against employees of color. At Connecticut Juvenile Training School in Middletown, Connecticut, a war is being waged by people of color to maintain their civil liberties, employees. People of color have launched a class action lawsuit, of which I am part. People have also gone on a hunger strike, of which I was part of that for about 10 days until I thought I saw Little Richard and Elvis singing Tutti Frutti with Desi Arnaz and the Babalu Band backing up. Then I said, maybe it's time for me to get off this hunger strike. But I even went on a hunger strike to make a point. We've organized people to sign petitions about the Department of Children and Families and their practices. Administrators use policy and procedure as weapons to force employees to accept unfair conditions. Let me just tell you what I mean real quickly before I get yanked off the stage. A 136 is a document that says, or that reads, if someone, you young lady, if you work for the Department of Children and Families, you're a mandated reporter. So if you see something that you think is wrong, you are obligated to write it up and send it in and have it investigated. However, if you're part of the administration and you don't like someone, me or anyone else, and you see them do something, you can write them a 136 and have me investigated or anyone else and use that as a weapon. And so that is one of the ways that the Department of Children and Families uses policy and procedures as weapons. If you look behind you, this is a chart, okay? The DCF roster, employee roster 2011 shows that whites are 52% of the population and blacks or employees of color 47%. Now, the spokesman, Gary Keeblatt, always says that DCF has 50% staff that are minorities, or 45% staff, and Connecticut Juvenile Training School has 50% staff that are minorities. Well, when you look at this chart to the left, that appears to be true. But see, Gary Keeblatt tells a lie, because if you look over here on the right, you see that when it comes to the disciplinary action, employees of color are disciplined more, 64%, versus 35% of whites. Now, if we listen to DCF, they talk about their diversity and their fairness. Well, where's the fairness when 53% of the employees supposedly are white, but yet when it comes to disciplinary action, 64% of the discipline goes out to employees of color. And so I would invite everyone to look at dcfplantation.org and look at something that was posted August the 18th, 2012, called Misleading the Public, Lies, Damn Lies, and Statistics. And then go to another chart on the Plantation website and look at DCF Disciplinary 2011, Harsher Penalties for People of Color. All of these charts that I just mentioned show conclusively that DCF is discriminating against employees of color. If you look at the organizational chart of DCF, and that was posted on our website November the 10th, 2012, you'll see the organizational chart only has people of color in the second tier where they don't have any power. For 30 years, DCF has been run by whites, and they have a vested interest in keeping, for lack of a better word, their white supremacy and hegemony intact on the backs of blacks, Latinos, and Asians. And so I'm here today to talk about civil liberties from that point of view. There's another war going on that people are not aware of as it relates to the Department of Children and Families and employees of color. And the war has been raging nonstop for a while, and there are many, many casualties. And I hope that people will understand that when we talk about civil liberties, we're not only talking about something that happened in New Haven, Connecticut, or the fact that our Muslim brothers, God forbid, are targeted just before they say Allah, just because they say Allahu Akbar and they embrace the Quran. No, there's another war going on where people of color are being targeted by a white-run organization that is bent on staying in power.
Thank you.